There's Frida. There's Frida. She looks good. Look how good she is. You look great. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Almost. Soon. It's right around now. I'll come and see you after. Did you see Frida? There's Frida. Oh, she's coming here. I think it's music.
Penny and Dee and then it's like education. She goes to a teacher and says,
She was your patient.
Shana Tova, everyone. Wishing everyone a vibrant and wholesome new year. It's truly an honor to be in this sacred gathering, marking both reverence and celebration. And tonight we converge with myriad experiences from the past year, moments of pure joy for some and trials for others. Still, as Edat Yisrael, the united community of Israel, we stand shoulder to shoulder, eager to welcome the new year enriched with melodies and heartfelt prayers. May the forthcoming year radiate sweetness and harmony. Let it usher in bonds of affection and camaraderie in the sanctum of our hearts and the profound depths of our souls. May blessings flourish, and despite our diverse journeys, we remain interconnected, embodying shalom. Let every soul and every heart revel in the dawn of this new year. And let us celebrate being together as we join together on page 6, as we turn to words of tradition. Hine ma tov, how good and how pleasant it is when brothers and sisters are gathered together in peace. As we gather to usher in the new year with the lighting of the Rosh Hashanah and Shabbat candles, it's only fitting that Linda Hollifield be the one to kindle them. Now, Linda has served our congregation with unparalleled commitment for over 12 years as executive director, and before those 12 years as our congregation's president, and before that as a member of our leadership. Much like these candles that pierce the darkness with their radiant glow, Linda has been a light, illuminating the path for shalom to remain vibrant and vital. And her truly tireless work casts a light that reaches every corner of our congregation, touching each of us with its warmth. Linda, with your energy and devotion, thoughtful skill, and unwavering dedication, you've ensured that everything we undertake is done with both enthusiasm and a benchmark of excellence. And for 12 years, you've been a wonderful partner to me and a shamus to our community. The shamas is a person in the synagogue who ensures the ner tamid, the eternal light, remains kindled, symbolizing God's eternal presence and the unwavering spirit of our faith. In many ways, Linda, you've been ensuring not just the physical upkeep, but also the spiritual and communal vibrancy is always glowing and always alive. We're blessed by your presence, and tonight, as you bring literal light into our gathering, we recognize and honor the metaphorical light you've been and continue to be for our community. We are immensely grateful and privileged to have you among us, and we wish you only continued light and goodness as you enter into retirement. So we turn now in our machzor to page 10 as we bring in the Shabbat and the festival with the kindling of our lights.
Creation's brightest light, the mystics say, was hidden at the dawn of time. But on this sacred night, this night of hope and joy, a glimmer of that light is here. In candles' flame, in children's eyes, in eyes aglow with wisdom's light, it shines in the faces of the ones we love, in grateful hearts, in tears of loss. It lives in memories of goodness and in our own desire to do right, to try again, to build anew, to ask forgiveness and make peace. We enter this new year and look upon the beauty of these lights, so may the days of awe renew the light within us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahad likner shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on Shabbat and this festival.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov.
May there only be Shabbat and Rosh Hashanah light. Thank you to Linda for bringing in the light of the holidays. We now have the pleasure of hearing from our congregational president, Steve Wallace, who will be sharing with us his presidential address on Rosh Hashanah. Steve, our congregational home has not only been a sanctuary for you, but also a testament to the legacy of your cherished family. Rabbi Pastor once foresaw the immense impact you'd make, not just within our walls, but far beyond, and how right he was. Your unwavering vision and infectious zeal for shalom points us towards a brighter tomorrow and instills a deep sense of confidence in all of us. And I'd like to express our profound gratitude for the wisdom, energy, and thoughtfulness that you bring to your role. Under your stewardship, we are confident that Congregation Shalom will not only maintain its strength, but flourish for many generations to come. May you find profound fulfillment as you guide Shalom into its next era.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, Good Yontif. It's a synagogue tradition for the temple president to speak on the high holidays. And in this case, you get to hear from a brand new president. But let me say how good it is for us all to be together. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the over 200 families that have joined Shalom during the time Rabbi Noah has served as our senior rabbi. If this is your first high holidays at Shalom or your 60th, please know that the Shalom family welcomes everyone. I hope the sanctuary is, or soon will be for those of you who are new members, a familiar and comfortable place even as we embark on the days of awe, a time when we're compelled to confront the uncomfortable. Our shortcomings, our failures, our mistakes, our humanity. I've always found that personal growth comes from the ability to become comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And perhaps Judaism provides these days of awe for just that reason. Let me take you back to the summer of love, 1969. Rabbi Harry, pastor of blessed memory, is the senior rabbi of our congregation. How many of you remember Rabbi Pastor? I think about him often. I can hear his voice in the sanctuary. So I had not yet started my first year of Hebrew school back in 1969. So it's fair to say I was very much at the start of my Shalom journey. I was in launch mode, or maybe better yet, pre-launch mode. And speaking of launch mode, in July of that year, of course, the first astronauts landed on the moon in a place evocatively named the Sea of Tranquility, if you remember that. And as a kid, I loved big words. I still do, and I thought tranquility was such a wondrous word, and it was the key component of that most poetic of names, the Sea of Tranquility. And while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the unfamiliar terrain of the moon that summer, I landed in Newport, Rhode Island, in the unfamiliar sanctuary of the historic Touro Synagogue, the oldest synagogue in the continental United States. And if I'm being totally honest, I felt out of place in that Orthodox shul. The entire experience was as foreign, uncomfortable, and bewildering to me as the lunar surface. The men sat downstairs, or more accurately, they stood downstairs, davening, praying all at once, speaking over each other. People walked up and down from the bima in no particular order. The experience conjured up the noise and confusion of the Tower of Babel. In one congregant, an elderly gentleman next to me davening impatiently flipped the pages of my siddur as I could not for the life of me figure out where we were in the Hebrew text. My mother sat upstairs, of course, with the other women, and it was hours before we were reunited. And it was the first time that I realized how much I missed the easy familiarity of our dear Rabbi Pastor and Shalom's comfortable, welcoming, and by comparison, orderly style of worship. But success in so many endeavors is a result of learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, even if discomfort comes from sitting in an unfamiliar synagogue or taking on new challenges likely to be fraught with a degree of frustration and hardship. And as I reflect on that summer long ago in Rhode Island and on the lunar landing on the Sea of Tranquility, I'm reminded of George Washington, actually another brand new president, come to think of it, who 233 years ago, almost to this date, wrote a letter of reply to the 25 Jewish families in Newport, Rhode Island, then the largest Jewish community in the 13 colonies. The congregation had previously written George Washington, congratulating him on ascending to the new presidency, and they understandably wondered just how this new nation might treat its Jews. President Washington's reply is taken from the prophet Micah, though I think many of us will recognize the words from the musical Hamilton by Lin-Manuel Miranda. George Washington wrote to the Jews, he said, "May the children of the stock of Abraham," that's us, the Jews, he was poetic, "may the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid." Such a compelling vision for our country, that we might enjoy the tranquility of sitting under our own vine and fig tree. It's a vision of peace and contentment that is the reward of a life well lived. And it is in this spirit that I want to recognize as well Linda Hollifield, who has served as a Shalom trustee, temple president, and our executive director for over 12 years. As she looks forward to spending more time with her family, I hope you will join me in wishing her a retirement replete with the tranquility that comes from sitting under her own vine and fig tree. Linda, you have served Shalom with skill, sincerity of purpose, and with love, and we are very, very grateful to you. So why did I choose to become Temple president? Another president, Theodore Roosevelt, probably said it best: far and away the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. And serving Shalom seems to me very much work worth doing. We're the largest synagogue in Wisconsin and a locomotive force for good in our city, our state, and indeed the world. And since inception, some 70 years ago, we've been blessed with a singularly talented clergy. We have a marvelous and industrious staff, including our Director of Congregational Learning and our educators. Our religious school enrollment is larger than any other synagogue in Wisconsin, and we are a synagogue of choice for many young families seeking to affiliate with a Jewish congregation. And you, our congregants, I'm honored to work with so many talented and deeply caring individuals and stand in awe of the accomplishments of all our members and the manner in which you incorporate Jewish ethics in all your professional and personal endeavors. Indulge me for a moment. Might those of you who currently serve on the Board of Trustees please stand up and remain standing. And might those of you who formerly served as trustees also stand. And might those of you who serve or have served on temple committees please stand. Those who roast the chickens for St. Ben, sort food at Hunger Task Force, tutor at ONG, volunteer at everything from temple outreach to search committees, Voices for Justice, our book club, our gift store, our choir. Stand. Our clergy, our professional staff, our religious school and Hebrew school educators and tutors, stand. Anyone who has extended extra financial support or endowed an educational event, please stand. And will the families of those who are already standing also stand? Because your support and encouragement make temple service both possible in the first place and a joy. See this picture? Our strength is here. It's in this sanctuary, and it is us. Thank you. You be seated, please. Finally, on this Erev Rosh Hashanah, I want to give voice to Ruth Mayer. Ruth Mayer is a 22-year-old Austrian Jew who fled to Norway and wrote a marvelous but little-known diary, a diary much like Anne Frank's. And while Anne Frank's diary was first published in 1947, Ruth's diary wasn't published until 2007, 60 years later. I'm reading it now, having just learned of Ruth Meyer and her lost diary. Ruth wrote eloquently of isolation and alienation and identity of almost every type. 81 years ago, Ruth was arrested, and the day of her arrest, she was immediately put on a freighter bound for Germany with 740 other Norwegian Jews. Just 5 days later, 5 days, she was sent to the gas chamber in Auschwitz. So in keeping with the complexity of the Jewish experience, the excitement of my first term as president, my first year, it's tempered with the bittersweet memory of Ruth Mayer, author of a less famous but equally poignant diary. So we must give voice. Shalom is a place both of memory and enthusiasm. And to me, hard and happy are not mutually exclusive, to the contrary. I promise you this. I welcome your thoughts and suggestions and promise to weigh them carefully and endeavor always to do the very best for Shalom. And I invite you to sit with me from time to time in an unfamiliar sanctuary, at least metaphorically, lest we accept our opinions without question, unless we take ourselves and our positions too seriously. I wish you all a good year, a year of peace. L'Shana Tova.
Steve, that was magnificent. And when we think about that moment where humanity landed on the moon, it happened because of people of vision. When John F. Kennedy stood and said, "We choose to go to the moon," we choose to go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. It reflected the courage of conviction as well as the talented leadership of someone who could see the potential future. And Steve, you are just like that. And what a joy it is to share the bema and leadership with you. Our cup truly is overflowing with blessing. We are now going to turn to the Kiddush, which can be found on page 78. And as Steve is going to lead us in this beautiful reading expressing joy of our cups overflowing. Page 78.
Lift this cup for the year that is gone, for mountaintop moments in the taste of joy, celebrations shared, milestones met, all we've mastered and achieved since last we met. For wedding rings, tears, and kisses under the chuppah, new babies, first words, and first steps. For the children who bless our homes and bring life to our community, for B'nai Mitzvah and confirmands, young teachers of this holy congregation, ours to cherish and guide with love. For beloved wives and husbands and sisters and brothers, for loyal friends who grow more precious with each passing year. For this community, which nourishes us all. For all we've learned, for all we've struggled through, for challenges surmounted and disappointments met with courage. For last moments shared with those we loved and lost. For parents and grandparents whose memories are with us forever, we lift this cup for the year that is gone, for the year that begins. May we meet it in strength, in unity, in hope. We lift life's cup and celebrate survival, so we may sanctify each day that is ours.
Thank you, Steve. Now on page 79 will rise for the Kiddush and will remain standing following the Kiddush for some time. So please, for those of you who are unable to stand or find it difficult, it is most important that you are safe and healthy during these high holidays, and it is absolutely acceptable for those who cannot stand to remain seated. For those who are able, we are so delighted that you have risen. As we hear the beautiful music and recitation of the Kiddush, as always, it's an honor to call on Howard Scheinman to lead us.
Thus there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Completed now were the heavens and the earth in their whole array. And on the seventh day God completed the work that had been done. And God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done, and God blessed the seventh day and called it holy. For on it God ceased from all the work of creating that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei pari agafen Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher bakar banu mikol ha'am V'romemanu mikol lashon V'kiddushanu b'mitzvotav V'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava Et yom Hazikaron hazeh Yom Zikron Trua B'Ahava Mikra Kodesh Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu V'charta
Umanu tikdashta mikohamim udvaracha emet v'kayam lad. Baruch atah Adonai melech al karetz mekadesh ha-shabbat v'Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
L'chaim. And Yesher Koach, source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life, upholding the life within us, and bringing us to this time. Thank you, Howard. The new year would not be the same without the vibrant rendition of the Kiddush that you bestow upon us each and every year. Your powerful and beautiful voice is a true reflection of your essence, and may we all continue from strength to strength. We are now going to turn to page 15, all the way back to page 15 for Tiku V'Chodesh.
Mishpat le'Elohei Yaakov, Mishpat le'Elohei Yaakov.
At the new moon, at the full moon, for our feast day, sound the shofar, for that is the law of Israel, the way of the God of Jacob. Hallelujah, b'teka shofar, praise God with the blast of the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol tzurat amo Yisrael berachamim. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, true voice of your people Israel. Tikiyah. Thank you to Harvey Paddock for sounding that strong blast of the shofar. It's a joy to hear your masterful playing once again. Now, serving as a shliach tzibor, a messenger to the divine, is a deeply spiritual undertaking. And so we now direct our focus to the Hineni, located on page 17. And our cantor offers this beautiful prayer on our behalf, channeling both his own and our collective hopes and dreams for this sacred day. May every soul within our community ready themselves for prayer. A good Yontif, everyone. Please remain standing as the ark is opened.
Hineni Ani mimas nirash v'nivchad mipachad yoshev tehilot Yisrael bati lahamod לחנן לפניך על עמך ישראל אשר שלחוני ואף על פי שאיני חדל והגון לכך על כן אבקשך אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, אדוני, אדוני, רחום וחנון, אלוהים שדי, איום ונורא. Middle of page 18. יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהי אברהם, אדוני יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה. האל הגדול והגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, אהיה אשר אהיה, שתבוא תפילתי לפני כיסא כבודך, בעבור כל הצדיקים והחסידים והתמימים והישרים, ובעבור כבוד שמך הגדול והנורא, כי אתה שומע תפילת עמך ישראל ברחמים. ברוך אתה שומע תפילה.
Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Yehi ratzon shenizkeh levirchotecha bishnat chamishat alafim sheva ma'ot shmonim ve'arba. Our God and God of our ancestors, May we know your blessings in the year 5784. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness, and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our hearts be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. We continue with the call to worship on page 20.
Et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, Leolam va'ed.
We turn to page 22 for Ma'ariv Aravim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, uvit vuna meshana itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umsader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom balayla, golel or mipnei choshech, vechoshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila. Adonai tzevaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We turn to page 24.
Ahavat olam, ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, ahavat olam, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, ואהבתך. לעולמים, לעולמים, לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני. אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto,
Please be seated. We continue on page 28. You shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. Thus you will become holy to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem emet. Adonai, your God, is true. We turn to page 32 and read responsively. 33. You have stayed long enough in this place, God said. Time to go forward. Turn your face to the future. Believe that you can cross this sea and survive. Inside you is a Moses. Within you, Miriam dances, unafraid. Lift up your voice and sing a new song. We turn to page 34 and read together. Witnesses to this heroic might, the people thanked and praised God by name, freely accepting the rain of heaven. Then Moses and Miriam and all Israel sang to you this song of utter joy.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha netar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, malchutecha ra'u v'hanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze'eli anu ve'ameru, Adonai imlok le'olam ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
After joining our voices in the very song that Moses and Miriam sang upon emerging from the tumultuous waters on their quest towards the promised land, it's natural for us on Rosh Hashanah to reflect on the year past, 5783, and peer into the horizon with a mix of hope and perhaps apprehension, especially when our gaze rests on Eretz Yisrael. The recent vote in the Knesset to curtail the Supreme Court's authority, specifically its ability to overrule governmental decisions, is deeply concerning. Is this the signaling of the twilight of Israel's liberal democracy? Not necessarily, but it certainly hints at vulnerabilities in its structure. This move has stirred the concerns of more than half of Israel's citizens and a significant number of Jews in the diaspora, and the worry is tangible. This may pave the way for legislation that reflects not the collective Israeli will, but that of specific factions with nationalistic and fundamentalist leanings. And there's a palpable sadness among my Israeli friends, not only for the present situation, but for the visible fissures in Israeli society and the increasingly strained relationship between Israel and diaspora Judaism. Yet despair rarely bears fruit. Rabbi Rinat Safanya, an esteemed colleague from Israel, provides a glimmer of optimism among the gloom. She observes, "As you know, our country is burning. It is sad and a difficult time here. Yet the protests brought many indifferent people out of the house to show how important this country is to them and how unwilling they are to give up democracy, civil rights, and matters of religion and state. We really hope that this protest will also lead people to choose by their feet and join the liberal movements like the Reform movement. We have a lot of work to do in all fields, and the road is long. The hope is 2,000 years old, and it does not end with one decision or another. There's a large movement of protest here, and alongside it, a large movement of people who want to continue holding hands despite all the differences. And we as a Reform movement and communities are here to hold on to hope, even when darkness seems to be falling." And echoing Rabbi Safanya, I too harbor that hope. The question now is, how can we, as diaspora Jews, best respond? How can we support our siblings in Israel, even if we question their government's actions? My belief is simple. Champion and uplift Israelis who resonate with our values. As Yossi Klein Halevi aptly points out, what is being fought out in Israel today is at once a practical struggle over democratic institutions and norms and a theological struggle over the meaning of Zionism and Jewish history. I am proud of the ongoing protests in Israel and the organizations that resonate with my beliefs. Rabbi Josh Weinberg, director of ARTSA, the Association for Reform Zionists of America, calls on all of us to increase our activism in Israel and our support for civil society and throw our support behind the Israeli Reform movement that has dedicated itself to saving Israeli democracy based on our commitment to Torah values as outlined by the prophets of Israel and reiterated in Israel's founding document, the Declaration of Independence. And I'm asking you to acquaint yourselves with ARTSA and those institutions ARTSA supports. The Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, and IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center. Please join and support ARTSA through membership and donation, and you can find information about how you can participate in our movement's efforts on the tables in the back of our sanctuary. I am also asking you not to turn your backs on the state of Israel. If you are moved to make an investment in the future of the state of Israel, an investment that will last, I pray, longer than the current crisis, please do consider investing in an Israel bond. And that information can also be found at the back of the sanctuary or in our foyer. This will be a protracted battle. It's not over by a long shot, and the liberal democratic nature of the state can only be taken apart piece by piece and must be met with a commitment to the very principles that are slowly being disassembled. The majority of Israelis are opposed to that disassembly, even if it is the agenda of the current government. So what we must do is not despair. We are a people who have been united in experience and purpose. We must not let go of that purpose or of each other, no matter how much we disagree. It is true that for Israel, this is a moment of moral reckoning, and I pray that all can see past their personal desires to what is best for all of our people, but we don't have the luxury of turning our backs on Israel, for we need each other, and we will need to navigate a future together. And when we pass through these waters of travail and step on firm ground on the other side, I pray that we will look back on all that we experienced and with hearts bursting and sing a song of triumph as in the days of old. Shana Tova, everyone. We continue now on page 37.
We read responsively, darkness settles slowly across the horizon. The new year rises before us, its fragile moon awaiting our embrace.
Heaven and earth entwine in their annual dance of recreation. A fissure appears in the firmament tonight, an entranceway into new beginnings.
Out beyond the swales, the sea expands and contracts, keeping time to the thrumming of the universe.
Under this Rosh Hashanah sky, the path before us is uncertain. All we can do is hold each other tight as we make our way home.
Baruch ata Adonai haporesh sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. On this Shabbat of renewal, we turn to page 38 for Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת
We turn to page 40 for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל בהגהלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם לעלמי עלמיה יתברך ויתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ויאמרו Amen.
During the High Holy Days, we reflect on the year that has passed, and we promise to do better in the new year. In the prayer Avot V'Imahot, we add the line beginning with Zochrenu Lechayim to pray that God will once again inscribe us in the Book of Life. We now turn to page 42 and rise for the tefillah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. Mi chamocha el harachamim zolcher yetzurav lechaim berachamim ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
We turn to page 49. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh ukdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. You are holy, your name is holy. Seekers of holiness praise you day by day. Selah. Please be seated. We read together, and so in your holiness give all creation the gift of awe. Turn out fear to reverence. Let us be witnesses of wonder, perceiving all nature as a prayer to come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. Awe-inspiring is your creation, all-encompassing your transcendent name. We turn to page 52. You and you alone, Adonai, will reign over creation upon Mount Zion, home of your presence, and in Jerusalem, a city set apart by you. As the psalmist believed, Adonai will reign eternally, your God Zion for all generations. Hallelujah. Together, you are holy, your name is awe. There is nothing divine beyond you. As the prophet Isaiah taught, the source of all might is exalted through justice, the God of holiness made holy through righteousness. Baruch atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh. Blessed are you, Adonai, holy sovereign. We continue on page 54. Vatiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu ba'ahava et yom hashabat hazeh ve'et yom hazikaron hazeh, yom zichron tru'ah ba'ahava, Mikra Kodesh Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. In your love, eternal our God, you have given us this Shabbat and this day of remembrance, a day for the shofar's joyful sound, remembered and cherished in our hearts, a day of sacred assembly, a day to be mindful of our people's going out from Egypt. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova, ufokdenu vo livracha, v'hoshienu vo l'chaim. Eternal our God, remember us, be mindful of us, and redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing. Together, favor us with words of deliverance and mercy. Show us the depth of your care. God, we await your redemption, for you reign with grace and compassion. We turn to page 56. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, God who is ours and God of our fathers and mothers, in your glory reign over the infinite expanse of space and time. Together, in your grandeur be exalted. Through your power, show us your reality. Then all who dwell on earth shall understand that you are their maker. Astound us with the beauty of your presence, so that every breath of life shall say, Eternal is the God of Israel, all-embracing God's rule and sovereignty. We turn to page 58. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, God who is ours and God of our fathers and mothers, may our rest on this Shabbat bring you pleasure. Lead us to holiness through your mitzvot, and may each of us find a portion of Torah that is ours. You bestow such goodness. Teach us to be satisfied and to know the joy of your salvation. Let your holy Shabbat be our heritage, embraced freely and with love. And may all our people bring holiness to your name by resting on this day. Help us to serve you truly with purity of heart, for you are a faithful God whose truth stands forever. Baruch atah Adonai, melech al kol haaretz, mekadesh hashabat v'Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. Our praise to you, eternal one, whose power pervades all the earth. You bring holiness to Shabbat, to the people of Israel, and to this day of remembrance.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tikabel u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha El Karov Lechol Koreav Pnei El Avadecha V'choneinu Shefoch Rochacha V'techezena eineinu Beshuvecha leTzion Berachamim Baruch atah Adonai HaMachazir Shechinato
We turn to page 62 as we read responsively. God who is ours, God of all generations, to you we are grateful forever.
Rock and protector of our lives, your saving power endures from age to age.
We thank you and tell the tale of your praise, your power in our lives, your caring for our souls, the constant miracle of your kindness.
Morning, noon, and night we call you goodness, for your compassion never ends. We call you mercy, for your love has no limit. We call you hope, now and for all time.
And for all these gifts, God of majesty, may your name come to be blessed and praised, our gratitude a daily offering until the end of time.
Inscribe your covenant partners for a life of goodness.
And may all life resound with gratitude and faith in praise of your name. God, you free us and strengthen us. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose goodness deserves thanks and praise.
ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה מזרח ומכתף אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל. אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
We take this moment of musical meditation for reflection.
Our thanks to Paul, for the whole choir, and our cantor and Wendy Traeger for lifting our spirits in prayer. We are now going to turn to the Avinu Malkeinu, which can be found on page 74. We ask the congregation to rise as we call upon two dear members of our community and congregation, Diane and Rich Kane, to have the honor of opening up our ark doors. And for this prayer of Avinu Malkeinu, may we be written for a life of good health and peace. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, you alone are our sovereign. Please join me in the English. Avinu Malkeinu, Lemancha Rachem Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, for your sake show us mercy. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu Lema'an Shmecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, Shlach Refuah Shlema L'cholei Amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, bring healing and wholeness to the ill among us. Avinu Malkeinu, Kra Roa Gazar Dinenu. Avinu Malkeinu, allay the harshness of the decree against us. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'Sefer Gula V'Shua. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of redemption and renewal. Avinu Malkeinu, Zochrenu B'Zichron Tov Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, remember our goodness and call it to mind.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Lemancha V'Hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake and save us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Korleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu Ve'al Ol Aleinu V'Tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever V'Cherev V'Ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Ve'anenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Aseh Imanu Tzedaka V'Chesed V'Hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'hanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu.
You may be seated. Well, it's a joy now to call upon Rabbi Shapiro, who I hope is in the room in the back. It's good to have hope in our hearts for all those good things in our lives. But it is a joy that he is going to be leading us in our sermon for this evening. You know, sometimes things don't go as planned. But there's a beautiful story about a person who was looking for the rabbi, and the rabbi used to disappear. And he used to disappear, every Shabbat before Shabbat would happen. And one person who was new to the community, they decided that they were going to follow the rabbi to find out where the rabbi would go before Shabbat. And so they went and they looked for the rabbi who would be, walking into the woods. And they followed him into the woods, and he came into the woods and found that the rabbi approached a house. And outside of the house, there was a small stack of wood. And there he would start to chop the wood, and they didn't understand why. And all of a sudden, the man started bringing the wood into the house. And there was an old lady that was in the house. And he used to bring the wood into the house, and he would feed the fire, and the fire would grow, and it kept her warm. He sat with her for a little while and kept her company and filled her heart and her soul. And then he went back to the synagogue, and the man followed him still. And the next day, when everybody, was wondering, where did the rabbi go? Somebody once said, maybe the rabbi goes up to heaven and studies and learns. Maybe the rabbi goes up to heaven and feels that sense of connection with the divine. Maybe the rabbi before Shabbat goes to heaven. And the man who had watched the rabbi feed the fire with this woman says, if not higher. It's joy now to turn to Rabbi Shapiro. Yes. I'm ready. Are you ready?
I thought you were going to go further and further. Well, it's wonderful to be here with you. Always has been, and I appreciate Rabbi Noah's wisdom, his collegiality, his warmth, and the beautiful words which he had spoken in every manner is inspiring. I appreciated the words he offered pertaining to the land of Israel and how vital it is. And I've directed my thoughts to Israel on this evening's holiday because it's so important. Israel is proud of what it's been able to maintain and how important it is for us as a community to realize the great depths of conviction and of hope and of satisfaction that has come from the land of Israel. It's taken a long time. There's a cute story about a Texan, a wealthy Texan who comes to Israel to visit Israel. And he wants to see the Israeli farms because he had a farm. And he's escorted by his colleagues in Israel. And he wants to impress the Israeli farmers. And he says, in Texas, I have a ranch that is so big, so vast, that it takes me 5 days to get into my tractor and drive it to the other side of my ranch. It takes me 5 days to get to the other side. That's how large it is. 5 days it takes me. And the Israeli kibbutznik says, I have a tractor just like that. Takes me 5 days to go that far. We have a good reason to be satisfied and moved by what Israel has done. During the presidency of Jimmy Carter, the president invited American rabbis to come to the White House in order to celebrate a peace agreement between Israel and Egypt so many years ago. It was an exciting and dramatic moment. Hundreds of rabbis were invited to go to the White House to see the leaders of Egypt and Israel sign a peace agreement. And that was the first year in the rabbinate here at Congregation Shalom. I had been a rabbi in Rochester, New York for 4 years, and then the next year I came to serve with Rabbi Pastor, who was an extraordinarily fine man. It was the year 1979. And at the White House, assembled with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rabbis, Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin, the president, so to speak, of Egypt and also of Israel, had a peace treaty. There was something so exciting and so meaningful. It was hard to explain the vast emotions that we were feeling, that this little state of Israel, who has fought from the very beginning of its existence to now reach a situation where the president of Egypt will sign a peace treaty with the prime minister of Israel. And it was a time of excitement. Jimmy Carter, maybe it was because he has a certain spiritual element of his soul, who believes that people of different religions should come together and respect each other. I don't know for sure if that was the reason, but he did so. And it was a proud time. And I was proud to be there. Unfortunately, Sadat was assassinated in 1981, removing all hope for some words of peace. We wanted to be able to say, Shalom Aleichem, in Hebrew, and in Arabic, Salam Aleikum. May there be peace upon us. Yet that year, perhaps an enthusiastic hope brightened the landscape eventually. For peace in the Middle East, we hope and we pray would have been there and occurred. But unfortunately, the death of Anwar Sadat struggles us and pains us. But we've come a long ways, and it hasn't been easy. And I'd like to share with you something about Israel that goes back to the year 1933, before Israel was established as a country. It was on a warm, dark evening in June of 1933, where Chaim Alasaraf, I'll share with you who he was, Chaim Alasaraf and his wife Sima walked arm in arm along a Tel Aviv beach. They hadn't seen each other in over a month. Alasaraf had left Israel on a mission. When they got home, he was excited to be home and back in what we would hope it would be Israel in 1933, but it wasn't until 1947. And they got a babysitter for their kids. They went to an Israeli restaurant along the Mediterranean, and then they went for a walk along the Mediterranean. They held each other in an embrace as they walked, hugging the Mediterranean's shoreline as they hugged each other. They walked and they talked, thinking they were alone in this desolate strip of beach. And yet from out of the darkness stepped two men and called out a word, Kama Hasha'a. Kama Hasha'a. That's all they heard. As I'll explain in a minute, it wasn't even an appropriate statement. Kama Hasha'a. One shined a flashlight in Orlasarof's face and said, Kama Hasha'a again. which is an incorrect construction of the Hebrew phrase, "What time is it?" It should have been Mahashaha. That's what is pronounced in Hebrew, Mahashaha. What time is it? And as the question was asked, the other man withdrew a Browning automatic and fired a bullet into Chaya al-Asaraf's chest. And he dropped, his blood spilling on the Israeli sand. The attackers fled as his wife Sima screamed in horror, "Help! Help! Help someone!" Jews shot him. And the bleeding al-Asaraf, still alive, immediately corrected her and said, "No, Sima, no. It wasn't a Jew. It wasn't a Jew." Because he would not have said, "Kama hasha'a." It was a person who tried to speak Hebrew, but confused himself. Though rushed to the nearest hospital, Chaim al-Asaraf, 34 years old, Jewish statesman and Zionist leader, unfortunately died that day. Who killed this man? Who killed Chaim al-Asaraf in that year of 1933, 14 years before Israel would become a state? Who murdered Chaim al-Asaraf and why? His funeral was the largest in the history of mandatory Palestine. They claim that 70 to 100,000 mourners came. Somehow, I don't know where they fit all those people there, but they came to give respect to Chaim al-Asaraf. Chaim al-Asaraf was a provocative and controversial figure. Yet rumors circulated that Chaim al-Asaraf was engaged in perpetrating secret deals with Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. Could this be true? If it indeed, there did exist truth in these rumors, there may be many who wished al-Asaraf dead. Did al-Asaraf have something to do with the Nazi government in Germany in 1933? Do you recall the year that Hitler became the head of Germany? 1933. Indeed, he had traveled to Nazi Germany. Nobody knew why, but he had meetings with the Nazis in 1933. First was this deal which Chaim al-Asaraf forged. What was it all about? For him to have the audacity to deal with the devil himself. That question is taken up in a book that was entitled The Transfer Agreement, written by Edwin Black. Black is a Chicago journalist who heard rumors in 1933 that the Zionist organization dealt with the Third Reich. The Zionist organization, or a Zionist organization, dealt with the Third Reich? How could that possibly have been? The implications of these negotiations were startling. The leaders of the Zionist organization negotiating with a madman who said of himself in 1933, quote, Hitler. I'm sorry to quote Hitler. He said, in 500 or 600 years, the name of Adolf Hitler would be honored in all lands as the man who once and for all exterminated the Jewish pest from the world. Could a Jewish agent from the land of Palestine, striving to create a country of Israel, interact with a person like that? Can the world believe that Zionists would deal with that man and that man deal with Jews? Incredible. Incredible. But it happened. The purpose of these negotiations was to release German Jews and a certain amount of their assets from the grip of the Third Reich. Both the German Jewish people and their assets would be transferred to Palestine. It's so interesting that Jews, wealthy Jews who had lived in Germany, and the assets that they had would be transferred from Germany to Palestine in order to create a Jewish country. In that manner, these middle-class professional German Jews, coupled with their desperately needed funds, helped construct a Jewish state. But why? Why would the Nazis, on one hand, strip the Jews of their rights, of their prosperity, of their dignity, of their life, and on the other hand, assist the Zionists who were building a Jewish country? What would the Jews need to offer the Germans in return first? And why were the Germans interested in building a Jewish country in the Middle East? The Zionists were to import German goods. In other words, buy German. If we help you create a Jewish state, you need to agree to buy German. Don't buy English. Don't buy French. Don't buy Dutch. Don't buy any other country's goods in order to construct a Jewish country. In that manner, financially decayed Germany would gain by establishing Palestine as a lucrative market for German supplies. Secondly, within the midst of Germany's 1933 economic woes, a concerted worldwide effort was mounted to boycott German goods. This was one of Hitler's problems, that goods were being boycotted, and Germany was in financial straits. Nations all over the world canceled other materials made and shipped from Germany. The Germany of which Adolf Hitler took charge of in 1933 was financially crippled. Indeed, his anti-Jewish campaign he fanned the fires of hatred against him. Indeed, Jewish organizations had mobilized much of the world to demonstrate against Hitler and boycott German goods. The boycott had been intensified at the beginning of Hitler's reign, and the Third Reich might have faltered and fallen into its own abyss. And Hitler wanted the Zionists to oppose the fight against the boycott, which was organized and administered by many of their Jewish brothers and sisters around the world. Was indeed Germany willing to help create a Jewish state in return for Jews to buy German goods? It was Chaim Alasarov who traveled to Germany in order to work out the complicated arrangements of releasing frozen Jewish assets to come to Palestine. Later in the war, if Jews wanted to leave, they couldn't take any of their surpluses, of the money that they had, of the jewelry that they may have. As the years went by, they would have had to turn over all of that material or those funds to the Nazis. It was Chaim Lassaroff who tried to arrange for the movement of German Jews to Palestine. It was Chaim Lassaroff who returned to Palestine and negotiated with pro-Jewish and anti-Jewish Arab leaders about purchase of land upon which to settle these German Jews. Land which would be paid for by, once again, German Jewish money. And it was Chaim Lassaroff who spoke with those Arabs so as to create a binational state consisting of Arabs and Jews. It was Chaim Lassaroff who sought British support for a plan which would witness the flow of German, not English goods to Palestine. There was tremendous amount of fight and anger between Germany and Great Britain. And if Jews were not going to buy from Great Britain, then they would have to buy from Germany. In other words, was a Jewish prominent leader working with the devil. Who wanted Lassaroff dead? Because he was killed when he came back on that Mediterranean shore. Poor fellow. They all sought his death. The Jews thought he was a traitor for negotiating with the Nazis. So, did Jews in Palestine want Lassaroff dead? The most demonic enemy of the Jewish people had ever known, was he really negotiating with the Nazis? Or the Arabs wanted him dead for negotiating with the Arabs because they wanted to have an equal place in Palestine as well. They needed a place, so they were angry. They may have, or whomever may have wanted him dead. The British saw his plan as a boon for German economy, not the British. Lassaroff was a person who still was beloved, even though for some reason they don't understand why it was that he was communicating with the Nazis. There are street signs in every single major city in Israel that says Lassaroff Street. So who killed Chaim Lassaroff? To this day, no one ever would know. Yet the incorrect information of the Hebrew question that night, not kama hasha'ah, it should have been ma hasha'ah, suggests that the killers of this Chaim Lassaroff were not Jews. There existed two dynamics which allowed for the Nazis to negotiate the Zionists in order to transfer Jews from Germany to Palestine. First of all, there was the need to stop the anti-German boycott. Rabbi Stephen Weiss, who was a renowned rabbi in New York City, at that same time was pushing businesses and corporations to do no work with the Germans. And people who were involved in high echelon communities, business communities, turned their backs on Germany because they were aware of the danger. Secondly, there is a history of anti-Semitism in Germany that goes back to the 1200s itself. Jews lived in Germany in the 1200s because they thought it was a safe place to stay. But anti-Semitism that we talk about, particularly in Germany, had its origins in the 1200s, and Jews had to flee Germany in order to save their lives, and most of them traveled north east to Russia, and Russia was taking in Jews. And that's why so many of Ashkenazi Jews, if you're an Ashkenazi Jew, there's so many of them went to Russia in order to find safe haven and live there. And eventually, by the late 1790s and 1800s, Jews eventually came to the United States because of the anti-Semitism there. Yet there existed a deep-rooted anti-Semitic attitude which linked to both the church and the politics. This is important, too, for us to consider before I conclude. The church in Germany, which influenced the Nazis. In 1543, Martin Luther published a vitriolic anti-Semitic pamphlet entitled "On the Jews and Their Lies." Martin Luther wrote this. Luther said, "They, the Jews, have been bloodthirsty bloodhounds and murderers. The sun has never shone on a more bloodthirsty and vengeful people." Luther suggested a solution to the Jewish problem in Germany. Now listen to this from 1543. This is what he said, Martin Luther. "I shall give you my sincere advice. First, set fire to their synagogues or schools." This is a clergyman in Germany. "Second, I advise that their houses all be razed and destroyed. Third, I advise that their prayer books be taken from them. Fourth, I advise that their rabbis be forbidden to teach on pain of loss, life, and limb. Fifth, I advise that safe conduct on the highways be abolished completely for Jews. Sixth, I advise that all cash and treasure of silver and gold be taken from them. 7, I recommend forced labor. However, Martin Luther felt that since Jews had no capacity to work, it would rather be the duty of all to drive them out like mad dogs. Quote, "Drive them out like mad dogs," end quote. And so there we have it. 400 years before the arrival of the Nazis, a plan and a guide which was taken step by Hitler did it precisely what he was told. A revival of Luther's anti-Semitic philosophy grew in the early years of the 20th century, which found expression in National Socialism. In 1933, Hitler, reflecting upon Luther's words, said in a newspaper interview, "Gladly we could give each and every Jew a railroad pass and 1,000 marks, note for pocket money, to be rid of them." Prior to Hitler's decision to introduce the final solution, that being the extermination of the Jewish people, his course of action was emigration. Hitler in 1933 wanted the Jews out of Germany. That's why he was willing to negotiate with the Jewish executives of a state that had not even been founded yet. He wanted Jews out of the country. He wanted their assets and property, and so he froze them and confiscated them. He wanted their businesses and positions, which robbed pure Aryans of employment. The Zionists, whom he despised for representing the very paradigm of the international Marxist Jew, ironically served Hitler's hope and need. By forcing Jews to go to Palestine, he could rid himself of their presence and yet take their jobs, property, and assets all at the same time. I have one really touching example. The Jews of Germany were educated and refined people, by and large. And they had beautiful homes, and they had done pretty well, despite the anti-Semitism which permeated Germany. And it was a time of difficulty. But houses were taken over by Germans. And there's a story about a little boy who came home from school, just in the first or second grade. And he walked home, it wasn't too far from where the school was, and he walked up the steps to his house, and he put his hand in his pocket to take out the key, and he pushed the key into the lock. Nothing happened. He stepped back to look if he's at the right house, if he had the right address. Yes, it's the right address. He tried to unlock the door again. From the inside, someone came to the door and opened the door. And it was a harsh woman who said to the little boy, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" And he looked up, he said, "This is my house. This is where I live. My mommy and daddy must be here. This is my house." The woman said, "This is no longer your house. It's our house," and slammed the door. And the Jewish community began to realize what would happen to them. That's why the establishment of the State of Israel and the work that has been done since well before 1933 to have a homeland. And that homeland, when you think about it, has done so much, has given a sense of beauty to the world. And all of those statements that were made by that minister, that first I'd burn their schools. What was the Israeli response? To build schools of the most sophisticated and beautiful manner. That I would advise them to realize how evil they are, said by Hitler. And the response is, open our arms to receive individuals who will indeed love others and help others and work so that the community of Israel will cultivate that which is noble and good for the world. We have cell phones that we carry. It was Israel who really developed the beginning of Motorola so that people could communicate, because how important it is to communicate. We have to realize the preciousness of this country, who has done remarkable things to protect itself and to preserve the beauty of how to live life, to respect others, and thereby be respected. That's why Israel is something that we should support in every way we can to preserve the dignity of not only the country, but the values inherent within the Jewish soul. Ken Yehi Ratzon, be this God's will.
It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all of its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomecheha me'ushar Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomecheha me'ushar drache darchenom drache hadarchenom v'chol netivoteha shalom v'chol netivoteha shalom. V'chol netivoteha shalom, shalom, shalom.
It truly is a tree of life. And thank you to Cantor for such a beautiful, beautiful sermon anthem, and thank you to Rabbi Shapiro for always planting and tending to the garden of our people. As we turn to the concluding sections of our service, it's a great pleasure to call upon Bill and Debbie Gartenberg to open our Ark doors, and we thank you both for all the goodness you've brought to our community and our congregation. And it's a pleasure to share this holiday and these moments with all of you. We turn now to the concluding sections on page 82, and we rise together now as we turn to Aleinu.
Aleinu leshabeach la'aton hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We turn now to page 90, and particularly during the holiday season, we feel the closeness of our loved ones who've passed into life eternal. As we hear the sounds of the shofar, we're cognizant of the fact that the shofar, the blasts, the music of it, was meant to connect people from great distances. And sometimes we feel the presence of those who've loved us as though their hands are still upon our shoulders. And so on this high holiday and this Shabbat, we remember those who've passed into life eternal during recent days. We think of Helen Motner and Marnie Rabin. We think of those for whom we mark the period of Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period, and a little bit beyond as well. We think of Wendy Huber, Lona Ross, Henry Rinsky, Joan Saperstein, Elaine Stoley, Ren Gollin. In addition to those names, we think of those for whom we mark their yahrzeit, and we still feel as though we walk in their footsteps. We think of Ezekiel Ofram, Eileen Arbiter, Phyllis Holzman Bernstein, Eunice Biller, Gerald S. Bodner, Nell Bruskin, Eliza Veto Chernaya, Kevin M. Cox, Norma Ansher Cranberg, Benjamin Davis, Ann Desher, Tony Lynn Fabric, Jack Feller, Sarah Gill, Phyllis Gilson, Larry Glick, Rose Goldstein, Donald Gould, Jack Ranoff, Paul Gratch, Irene Habish, Donald Hack, Phyllis Holzman, Alfred M. Hurwitz, Esther Huxley, Diane Kahn, Miriam Kahn, Claire Katz, Louis Katz, Dale Kolstad, Albert Levin, Rose London, Neil Minkin, Mike Nolte, Alan Philip Pearson, Morris Pivar, Sheldon Plotkin, Saul Pollock, Esther Sapiro, Gertrude Sharp, Ronnie Sherman, Karen Schlensky, Philip Sklar, Louis Stein, Selma Stein, Lois Taus, Lillian Weissman, Katie Wakeford, Janice S. Weist, Michael Winston, Louise Zimmerman. If there are names that should be added to this list or names that should be pronounced differently than I did, it's always a meaningful tradition to call those names out loud. Please do call those names as I look in your direction. In addition to the names of our loved ones, so too do we think of all those who've died due to war and/or terrorism, all those who died in defense of this nation and allied nations' ideals. We think of all those who perished during the Holocaust, and we think of all those who died due to the virus of racism and xenophobia. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn to words sanctified by memory, words glorified by hope. The Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, can be found on page 90. We rise together as we remember our loved ones. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, bi'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela ul'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Jamiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Our griefs are mingled. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. We are going to forego the announcements this evening, but I invite you to check in the back of the room, I believe at the back of the hall, as well as in our foyer. There you'll find information about the times of our services. I know that our family service is pretty early tomorrow morning, But our grown-up services are at 10 a.m. You're welcome. So we are now going to turn to our closing hymn for this Rosh Hashanah. We conclude with the Mighty Yivarecha by Max Janowski. And I just want to say that we have a wonderful choir, and we're thrilled to share in this beautiful moment with them. We also are so enriched by the beautiful music of our dear Cantor. Thank you to Cantor for lifting our spirits in song. And we just wish you all a good Yontif. May you all be blessed.
Our God and God of our fathers and mothers, may your blessing rest upon us, according is the gracious promise of your word. Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha ve'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha. Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. V'yasem lecha shalom,
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.
Thank you.